two, whoo!
Welcome to Authenticity Lab, a podcast where we celebrate connection with our authentic selves. I'm Dr. Kelsey Miles. I'm a musician, a songwriter, and also a chemistry professor. I use songwriting and science to understand the world around me and my world within. In every episode, I share a new life story, and I break it down using the scientific method. My hope is that each episode will help you live more boldly, lead a life of curiosity, so that you can become who you truly are. This is not something we do alone, and it is a forever journey, the most important journey you'll ever do in your whole life. In today's episode, we are talking about choosing yourself and why choosing yourself sometimes feels terrible in the beginning, but in the long run, it's the best thing you could possibly do, and it leads you closest to who you really are. Let's dive in. So earlier today, I went for a walk, and I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about on today's episode. And the thing that kept coming up for me, you can probably hear Miss Rhodey Miles in the background. The thing that kept coming up for me was that I didn't want to go for a walk. And here I am walking, and as I keep going, it starts feeling better and better. I really just wanted to sit on my couch and hang out with Rhodey and Encore, my two cats, and just chill. I had written some exams today. It's finals week at school. And I decided to go for the walk because I knew it was good for me. And it was a way that I could feed myself, and feed my soul and move my body a bit. But I didn't want to at first. And so I went for the walk. And as I was on the walk thinking about what to talk about today, it kind of dawned on me that it wasn't until after I chose myself, after I chose to go for the walk and I started doing it, that it felt better. It felt worse in the beginning. I didn't want to put on my shoes. I didn't want to, I didn't want to do that. And so it didn't feel great in the beginning, but then as the walk started to happen, I felt a whole lot better. So it really made me want to think about and talk with you about choosing yourself. Now, that's such a small story, and those are things that we can do and we do every day. And more often than not, when we are in a situation that's more difficult to choose ourselves, those are the ones that can really, really impact our journey of being our most authentic selves. Going for a walk or not going for a walk, if you do that for years, you're really going to hurt your body because you're not moving it. But those small decisions are a little easier for us to choose ourselves. So I thought I would share a story from when in my early 20s, I was in an abusive relationship. And I've brought this up in earlier episodes. And so today will be a very different flavor around this, where I had the most difficult time choosing myself in this situation. And the reason is because the whole situation was built on me not choosing myself. It was built on me abandoning myself and fulfilling the needs of someone else in spite of myself. That absolutely wore me down, so much so that I wasn't myself. I was really a shell of a person. I had the most difficult time choosing myself. I gained weight. I stopped taking care of myself in ways I normally would. I didn't have close friends, the support network that was really taken away from me because I chose to abandon myself and to not choose myself in those situations. And when you're in a situation like that, it's a series of events of you not choosing yourself over and over and over and over again, to where you're essentially standing on this platform built specifically on you not choosing yourself. So if you think about a situation like that, to actually choose yourself at any point in time would essentially be detrimental to the platform that you built because it was all based on you not choosing yourself. I knew any moment for me to choose myself would be causing an earthquake. It would cause so much backlash. It would be so opposite of everything I'd already done. And so those kinds of situations, what do you do in that kind of situation? Well, it was so uncomfortable for me to decide to leave that relationship. That was one of the most difficult situations in which I chose myself. That was so hard. It was so terrible when I did. It was really bad. The backlash that I received from leaving that relationship was horrible for months. Not only was I grieving not having that relationship, and no matter how bad a relationship is, anytime you make a big change like that in your life, there's gonna be a lot of grief because to some extent you were standing on a platform you built. You just built it with the wrong materials. I was abandoning myself. I was not choosing myself. I was choosing the other person in lieu of myself again and again and again just to make it all okay and to keep the peace. Well, it wasn't very peaceful when I left inside and also what I was receiving externally. I kept receiving letters about how they were going to find me. I mean, it was bad. It was really bad. And I don't want to go into tons of details. This episode is not about the other person. This episode is about what I could have done and how I did this and how this decision allowed me to make more choosing myself decisions later on. And it helped me learn something about how I can get in the mindset when, like we all do, we get a little off sometimes and we just kind of find ourselves a little stuck. So when I decided to leave the relationship, not only was I feeling that grief, but I was also feeling so much discomfort because everything I had been doing was not choosing myself. So to make a decision that was so opposite of what I had been doing was kind of this emotional whiplash that I was feeling as well. Now, of course, over time, I started to feel better, but boy, was that hard the first few months. I mean, it consumed me. And that's a lot of why I leaned so hard into chemistry was because I needed to get my mind off of it. Eventually, I then moved into music. So none of this are things I regret or I'm sad about. It made me who I am. But that idea of choosing yourself, even though I knew it was the right thing to do for me to leave the relationship, the discomfort I felt in the short term, those next few months after that, it it was terrible, and it really makes you not wanna choose yourself. It makes it so easy just to keep going and keep the peace because it really did set off an earthquake. It was absolutely terrible. But over time, I felt more like myself. Over time, I started to build relationships that were better for me. Over time, I reconnected with friends I had lost during that relationship. I started taking care of myself better. I mean, everything got a lot better. And if you think about the scientific method in this way, the drawing of the conclusion from all the data I gained is something that's taken me a long time to realize how much I've gained from that very difficult decision. So, my hypothesis at the time when I thought I was going to be, leaving, was very much so that it was going to be absolute hell. And it kind of was. It really was. But I also knew in the long run it was going to be better. I had to. I had to. I was so far away from myself. And when I ran the experiment and left, I collected a lot of data, a lot of what I've already shared about how uncomfortable I was in the first few months. And as I analyze the data and I kind of zoom out, and this is something that, I've noticed how that choosing myself, that big one early on in my life has affected everything. I've noticed that again and again in my life that over time, choosing yourself always wins. It really does. It always wins in the long run. And it put me a lot closer to who I really was. That's how I ended up starting music and then feeling so much more like myself. I would have never started this podcast had I not done that decision back then. The conclusion I drew from that as I look at it today is that no matter how much we can logically understand that choosing ourselves will cause an earthquake and it'll be really bad. There's a part of us that knows it has to be done. And this brings up my song, The Lighthouse. I've talked about The Lighthouse before in past episodes. And this song is really about how we all have a light that's within us. And this light that you have, I really view it as your innermost true self, and it's shining, and it has a certain hue to it, or some people talk about the frequency that you have, and it's unique to you, and it's always, always, always shining. I want to read you a few lyrics from my song, The Lighthouse. This is chapter 11 in my I Am a Lyrical Journey. You can get a copy of this 100 days of journaling through my whole album on my website at kelseymiles.com/100 days. In the verse, it says, patiently waiting, no matter the storm, my light never wavers, so you can explore.
Patiently waiting, no matter the storm. My light never wavers, so you can explore.
The light you have inside of you, it never wavers. It's patiently waiting. It's not like the light turned off when I was not choosing myself in that abusive relationship. It was still shining. It was that light that allowed me to notice how far away I had gotten from the lighthouse. And because that light that we all have inside of us is so steady, often what we need to do is just listen so that we can really hear it and so we can get back to who we really are. Those choices that we make when we choose ourselves, they become so difficult, often because our situation that we're in was built upon us not choosing ourselves. So, of course, it's going to be difficult. And when we find ourselves in situations, much like mine, where I had created so much momentum of not choosing myself seems so abruptly different. And that's where a lot of that discomfort comes from. It's interesting because you want to I like to think that if I choose myself, I'll feel good, and that's just not what happens. That's not what always happens. Often, you can feel discomfort in the first part of it, but it's not because you aren't being authentic. It's because you've spent time being inauthentic, not being connected to the light within. Deciding that you are not going to look at that light, deciding to put barriers between you and your own lighthouse. The discomfort that I felt was because I had to remove all those things and push these big, heavy objects out of the way so I could actually see my own light. I thought about that while I was walking today, about how weird it is when you choose yourself that it actually can feel worse in the beginning stages of it. And often that's why we don't choose ourselves, because it's going to feel bad. But we know that long term, when you choose yourself, it always feels better. Your most authentic self feels at ease. It feels peaceful. It's content. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to have things happen in my life that's going to throw me off. I mean, that's always going to happen. But choosing yourself is the best thing you can do for yourself. It really is. And when you choose yourself more, you'll end up having more energy and more to give so that you can actually give to others. You can't do that if your cup is empty. Your cup, when your cup is empty, it's empty. You got to fill your cup up first. It's time for your life experiment, and I thought this week would be a great week for all of us to do this. I want you to think about something in your life And maybe it'll come up this week where you're asked to do something and you realize that this would not be choosing yourself and you really don't have the energy or capacity to do it. So this could be you saying no to something. Perhaps you're being asked to volunteer for something and you don't have time, or some birthday party's happening and they want you to bring cookies or whatever it is. At work, someone needs help with some project and you're kind of slammed already. Maybe choosing yourself would look like you saying no. Another thing you can do is if they're like for me today, I haven't been moving my body as much as I normally do. And so today for me to choose myself was to get up, put my shoes on, and go for a walk. No matter how uncomfortable it feels in the beginning, choosing yourself is always, in the long run, the best thing to do. So this week, think of something that you either have been wanting to do, you haven't found the right time to do it. Maybe now is the time. You go for a walk or whatever it is that makes you feel good. Choose yourself, even if it's a little uncomfortable at first. Maybe saying no is what you need to do this week. I don't know what it looks like for you, but I have an idea that you probably can think of something. And I want to insert this in here. I keep saying, like, choose yourself, choose yourself. Doesn't it sound so selfish? I mean, it's so selfish, right? It's not at all. It's really not. You have to fill your own cup before you can help anyone else. I've learned I am the best daughter, friend, coworker, teacher, musician when my cup is full. And if your cup isn't full, it's often because you aren't choosing yourself first. So, as selfish as this sounds, I have a good feeling that if you're listening to this podcast and you made it this long in this episode, you are not a selfish person, because if you were a selfish person, you wouldn't care about connecting with your authentic self, and you probably wouldn't have issues with being the people pleaser or giving too much. So if you made it this far, this message is probably for you, and you are not being selfish by choosing yourself. It'll feel that way, though, often if you've built a situation based on you not choosing yourself. So be careful when you choose this week. You don't have to do what I did in my early 20s where I left that relationship and caused that major earthquake. You could do something small. And I want to add one more thing here. The momentum that you create by choosing yourself is what we're trying to do. When we have momentum built on us not choosing ourselves, it's almost like you are tuned to a radio station that is all about not choosing yourself. So you can't really hear what it feels like to choose yourself because you're not tuned to that radio station. And so it's going to feel uncomfortable. That discomfort is not because you aren't being true to yourself. That discomfort is often because you have to tune your radio to the FM station, that sounds more like choosing yourself. You can also think about it like a lighthouse, like I said, and you've got barriers in between you and your light. Another way I like to think about it is your light is inside. You can think about it like a window in front of your light. And when we aren't choosing ourselves, our light isn't shining. And I think about it as like cleaning our windows. Maybe your windows are really, really dirty. No one likes cleaning windows. So of course it's going to feel uncomfortable when you start letting your light shine, because no one wants to clean windows. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you're a weirdo and you like cleaning windows. You can come clean mine. I don't like cleaning windows. But that's what we're doing so that our light can shine, so that we can be our most authentic self. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Authenticity Lab. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend of yours, maybe someone who also needs to choose themselves this week. Send it to them and have a conversation, see what comes up. I'd also love if you'd share with me how this week goes for you. My email is kelsey@kelseymiles.com. I love hearing your stories. I'll be back next week with a new life story and a new experiment that you can run so that you can live more boldly, lead a life of curiosity, and keep being your most amazing, authentic self.
Yeah, that house will always call you.